Everyone has a band they listen to. Back in my generation, while people were listening to AFI, A Day to Remember, and Slipknot, I was headbanging to Cannibal Corpse and their album Eaten Back to Life from 1990. This is the first album in Cannibal Corpse's discography, with Chris Barnes doing vocals and lyrics, Jack Owen on guitar and also doing lyrics as well, Bob Rousset on additional guitars, Alex Webster on bass and doing some extra lyrics as well, and Paul Mazurkiewicz on drums, and having an input on lyrics as well. This at the time 5-man band created something horrifying in the early days of death metal. People were still trying to transition from thrash to this new form of music. Elements can be heard in a lot of bands. However, in Cannibal Corpse's first album, the rules fucking changed. Death thrash was still implemented, but it was definitely a unique style and something audiences hadn't really been exposed to. Sure, there were gore bands like Carcass, Autopsy, and Death before this album, but I don't think they were quite as ferocious as Barnes and the Gang were in Eaten Back to Life. Let me just say, this is either my favorite Cannibal Corpse album or a close second. Chris Barnes is one of my favorite vocalists, and the screams of rage in this album are much different and louder than what he'd become by album 2 and beyond. You can feel the anger in every word spoken. Cannibal Corpse pretty much started as 2 bands. First was Tyrant Sin, formerly known as Satan's Angel, and the second was Leviathan. Eventually, Bob Rousset and Chris Barnes got together with Mazurkiewicz, Rousset, and Webster and created the band Cannibal Corpse. The title was chosen because it just rolled off the tongue so nicely. People often asked what it meant. Isn't it obvious? It's a cannibal that is a corpse. Hell, this album was dedicated to Alfred Packer, the first American cannibal, and who is definitely a corpse by now. Another band I want to get into at some point is Deicide. They are awesome. And did you know that Glenn Benton, the lead singer of Deicide, along with Francis H. Howard of Incubus, provided backup vocals on this album? On the 2 tracks they provided screams for, Mangled and Skullful of Maggots. You can tell where they appear. I didn't know that until recently, and now I can see the likeness in the vocals. Vince Locke, an American comic book artist, did the album artwork for Eaten Back to Life, as well as every other Cannibal Corpse album, up to the upcoming Red Before Black. Unbuckle your seatbelts and start your engines as this album revs up. Shredded Humans has a 20-second build-up, and then bang, 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 all hell breaks loose. This song was the first one I learned all the lyrics to, and is quite possibly my favorite Cannibal Corpse song. This song is vile and deals with a family of 5 driving home from an unspecified journey. A maniac walks out in the middle of the road, and they collide. The crash kills the family in gruesome fashion. But the homicidal fool isn't pulverized. Instead, the song ends on sequel bait, which is awesome. To me, this song has the most visual storytelling out of any Cannibal Corpse song I know. The lyrics, too, that is. What is so tasty about surgery? Apparently everything that makes an edible autopsy. This song has a great build-up and then shred down, with tons of disturbing lyrics involving a manic doctor performing ghastly experiments on a living corpse that hasn't quite died yet, and is seeing, maybe even feeling, everything during his unwarrantedly atrocious autopsy. Put them to death could easily be about a holocaust of sorts. It's about a mass slaughter of a race of people who aren't in one sadistic ruler's vision. Torture and execution abound. The song clocks in at less than 2 minutes and is intense as hell. One of the things I love about Scattered Remains, Splattered Brains is that it doesn't give a fuck what it's about. It's all about the gore. The electric guitar has a great presence and gives us a tune to jam out to until we wait for the next headbanging sequence. Disclaimer, I love all the songs on this album. They're all kick-ass, and if there's one I haven't mentioned yet that everyone loves, it's A Skull Full of Maggots. It's insane and extreme. It definitely has a place all its own on this album. The song is about what the track's name suggests, a maggot-infested skull. The way it is presented is death metal gold. I was always captivated by the meaty vibe of this album. Everything is about the gore. The corpses, the death, the torture. It complements the album and coats it with layer upon layer of body chunks. Hell, if you want an example of how grubby this album is, just look at the album cover. An old geezer is literally trying to eat himself back to life. This artwork is awesome and is among my favorites from the band. Everything about this album is crisp. No instrument or note overplays another. They all sound level, and it's just awesome. No song is bad. They are all unique tunes, and one is not similar to another. They are different and devious. With 11 songs and a brisk runtime of 36 minutes, this album is fast, fiendish, and ferocious. A very impressive album from 1990. One that entered with a manic look and left with a gory lasting mess. The top 6 best songs on this album, in my opinion, are number 6, Born in a Casket, number 5, Edible Autopsy, number 4, Mangled, number 3, Scattered Remains, Splattered Brains, number 2, A Skull Full of Maggots, and number 1, Shredded Humans. Low for all I give, Cannibal Corpse and their album, Eaten Back to Life. A solid 5 out of 5. My first perfect score, which is perfect in of itself because I gave my 5th album review a 5 out of 5. 5s for everyone! I am Brian Gatto, host of Horror Show Entertainment. Make sure to like my Facebook page in the description below and leave comments and subscribe.